Hello, I'm Jerry Scheibach, pastor at the Lighthouse in your brain sewer. Whose finger do you want on the nuclear button? Think about Cruz and the people that follow him. Trump's crowd gathers and rages with him as he drops his F-bombs and revels with him in the gutter language of Hollywood or unholy hood and so on. You know, don't take that wrong. I lived in the hood of sorts. They called it the Vadio, and I guess that's pretty close to the same thing. Anyway, this behavior is not usual among conservatives, is it? At least not among the conservatives I hang with or that I know anything about. Trump support is made up of a lot of what you might call low information voters. Cruz made that observation, and Trump tried to make some big deal out of it, as if Cruz was saying that his supporters were ignorant or stupid, or as Trump put it, poorly educated. Trump's response to Cruz's observation that many in his support group are among the low information voters, Trump responds by saying that he really loves poorly educated people, as much as saying that he refers to his own supporters as poorly educated. I thought that was very interesting. Apparently, that's what he thinks of his crowd. Perhaps he is purposely targeting that demographic. I don't know. He's rallying the angry underbelly of the electorate to his side, so much so that many of his early supporters who don't identify with this recent angry, aggressive behavior, who were at first drawn to him because they saw in him a competent businessman who could, well, take care of business for America. But more and more, they're beginning to see the Trump that I have been trying to bring to your attention almost from the very beginning, that he is the gravitational center for the bitter conservative. Many of them among those that liberals typically call the great unwashed, you know. And as I watch this, I begin to see that a thought that occurred to me some months ago about Trump is beginning to settle into a concrete conviction in my mind about this man. Step back a little farther from him for a little bit, will you? Take a few more steps back, because I think some of you are just too close and you're not able to see him. Trump embodies every stereotype liberals have created about conservatives. Pay attention. He even looks like a picture of an angry conservative that you might see in a liberal cartoon. Angry, bitter, raging, crude, ignorant, mean-spirited, crass. Now, that's not the way I think of conservatives, but that is the way liberals think of us. Anyway, my point here is that Trump, if you step back and look at Trump, he looks and sounds like a caricature conservative created by liberals. And at the same time, his policies actually have many of the characteristics of distorted compassion that we see so often in liberalism. For example, this business, he said, I'm a liberal when it comes to health care, and has said that he wants national health care. He doesn't believe Obamacare went far enough. And some of you who despise Obamacare are supporting, well, Trump care, I guess. The point is that Trump thinks of conservatives in exactly the same way that liberals do. Trump sees his followers in the same way an elitist New Yorker would see the average man who lives in what is called by them flyover country. And by the way, for the record, when we talk about low information voters, we're not referring to their intelligence or even their education, not generally speaking. We're referring to the fact that they haven't really looked at the policies that these people are presenting, and they're making their decision based on superficial responses to their personality or something like that, and not really looking deep at it. Look, Trump has nothing but disdain for his followers. He said that they would follow him even if he shot somebody in cold-blooded murder on a street in Manhattan. What does that tell you about what he thinks of his followers? Look, what I'm trying to get across is that Trump is a liberal in his policies. If you examine them, you'll see that. He's a liberal, and he thinks that all he has to do is throw some red meat at the conservative dogs to get them all on his side. Sadly, there are enough angry conservatives out there right now who are totally distracted by his red meat so that they're not paying attention to Trump's record. And these, together with the crossover liberal Dems who are voting for Trump as a way of stopping their losses in November. But facts, my friends, are stubborn things. And the fact is, 2/3 of conservatives are voting against Trump, not for him. It's actually more than 2/3. If you subtract out of his support the voting numbers, those crossover liberal Dems, he doesn't have very much support at all among conservatives. Not really. As for me and my house, we will not vote for Trump. He doesn't get my vote. Now Carson, okay, he can compromise his convictions. Carson can swallow the stinky, flea-infested camel called Trump, even though Trump referred to him as psychopathologically angry or something like that, and implied that he was a pedophile, or at least put pedophilia in the same category as Carson's problem with anger. What was that about? And Carson can overlook all of those things because that's just politics, you know. Carson's that kind of a guy. And so he'll go ahead and throw his support behind Trump, who, as far as we could examine and compare their policies, they're almost diametrically opposed to one another, unless there are some things about Carson that we didn't know and only recently found out. Carson can swallow the camel called Trump and strain on the gnat of Cruz, or his team anyway, not him personally, but somebody on his team, retweeting and repeating something that was reported on CNN. He can strain and choke on that gnat while he swallows the stinky, smelly camel of Trump. Well, Carson can do. Phyllis Schlafly, 91 years old and 94 years old, somewhere up in there. Staunch conservative all of her life, so far as I know, and she can somehow, from her Christian convictions, look at Trump and see a man of God, see a man that God would want in the White House, could see a man that would represent her values and her beliefs. Phyllis Schlafly can do that, and Sarah Palin can compromise her convictions about conservative things and throw her support behind Trump. Huckabee, a Christian man, well, he could go ahead and compromise his convictions because everything that he was saying, Trump disagrees with. Their policies are ideologically opposite. You know what needs to happen right now? Rubio and Kasich needs to get behind Cruz and take out Trump. That's something to think about.